There's no cohesive identity in Taiwan. So it's very difficult to build a military without that agreement on identity. To build a military that the people of Taiwan can be proud of. However you identify, you live in Taiwan, you're talking about defending this island, defending this land. It's the one thing I think that everyone can agree on. There's too much of a focus on outdated philosophies that aren't attractive to Taiwan's young people today. We should be instilling those skills, training them appropriately, how to use weapons, how to mount guerrilla campaigns, teaching them the right tactics. One of my suggestions is that they approve and promote the creation of Aboriginal regiments. Mount a guerrilla campaign against an occupying force. No one is better equipped to convey these skills, really, I think, than Taiwan's Aboriginal population. You create a military that's closer to society, and you create a military that's respected, most importantly, respected by society.
Okay, Dean, please just start by briefly introducing yourself. Who are you?
I'm Dean Karalekas. I just recently completed my PhD at National Junction University. I look at military-society relations in the ROC.
And you found out that Taiwanese are not really happy with the way the military is going right now. Why is that, and what would need to change?
Morale is very low. There's problems with training. There are problems with the attempts to move to an all-volunteer force. And they're not meeting their recruitment targets. The research I did suggests, and my conclusions are that maybe it's not the right time for Taiwan to move to an all-volunteer force. Maybe they should keep conscription, but also make some other serious changes to the military culture, rather than just technological changes, weapon system changes, but to build a military that the people of Taiwan can be proud of.
So what is the fundamental problem here? On the one hand, at least in your own words, but on the one hand, Taiwanese need a military, on the other hand, they don't accept it the way it is right now, right? Is that...
Well, Taiwan obviously needs a military, and the main threat, people in Taiwan understand that the main threat is a very old-fashioned threat to Westerners, is an invasion from another country. In this case, the country is China. So how do you defend against that? So there's a very definite need for military, but there's also a very modern society, Taiwan. And so I think they felt they wanted to go to an all-volunteer force because this is what modern societies do, but it's not really applicable in Taiwan's case because of the clear and present threat that they face from China.
And what are some suggestions that you draw from your research? What would you tell the Taiwanese government, maybe, think about this?
Well, one of the problems that's identified is the attitudes within the military. People identify this as a problem within the military. And also the problems with the Taiwan identity. There's no cohesive identity in Taiwan. So it's very difficult to build a military without that agreement on identity. So I suggest that you change the training so that there's a focus on the land. So the training philosophy is to focus on the land of Taiwan. So whether you're identify as Chinese or Taiwanese or Hakka, however you identify, you live in Taiwan, you're talking about defending this island, defending this land. And it's the one thing I think that everyone can agree on, and it could be a force that brings different parts of society together. At least they can agree on the defense of the land. One of my suggestions is that they approve and promote the creation of Aboriginal regiments. So, for example, Taiwan has 16 official, many unofficial Aboriginal tribes, we call them, and each with its own culture, its own heredity, its own unique language, skills, and no one knows the land really better than these Aboriginal tribes. So if we can create regiments based on these tribes, they can use their traditional skills, living off the land, hunting, tracking. For example, in America there were battalions of Cherokee or Choctaw. And so there are other examples, for example, British Gurkhas, very fierce fighters. So Taiwan could do something similar. Now this would be good not just for the military, this would be good for the tribes themselves, because for countless generations they've had different colonizers trying to assimilate them and try and rob them of their own identity, rather than doing something like this, which would be to promote that identity. Many of these skills are in danger of being lost for lack of transmission. So by embracing them and using them in a positive way, they would be promoting keeping those skills And it would be good for the military. It would be good for Taiwan society. For example, you could have Aboriginal instructors, military instructors, teaching regular troops how to live off the land, how to survive in the mountains, how to, if say China were to attack, mount a guerrilla campaign against an occupying force. No one is better equipped to convey these skills, really, I think, than Taiwan's Aboriginal population.
You also talk about the importance of a reserve or maybe even the militia.
Well, again, one of the dangers is China annexing Taiwan by force and move a military over. It becomes an occupying power. How do you fight against that? Very often, what we've seen in the past and history shows is that people go underground, they go to the mountains, they run to the hills, and they engage in a guerrilla war campaign against the occupying power. Well, reserves are being underused now, so we should be instilling those skills, training them appropriately, how to use weapons, how to mount guerrilla campaigns, teaching them the right tactics to be able to, if worse comes to worse, and such an invasion happens, to be able to fight against that.
How would you introduce a system like this, like concrete steps?
Well, it starts from the training and the training philosophy, and there's too much of a focus on outdated philosophies that aren't attractive to Taiwan's young people today. Sun Yat-sen's 3 principles of the people is great, but it doesn't have a lot of resonance with today's young people. So you make the military a more attractive career option, life option, and slowly, by abandoning the things that don't work and bringing in things that do work, you create a military that's closer to society, and you create a military that's respected, most importantly, respected by society. You give tasks that are achievable, and you build esprit de corps, you build morale, and you build a warrior spirit among Taiwan's young people through their love of the land and their desire to defend this land, because the survey shows that people want to defend this land. They care very deeply about this land.
So in this context, what do you think about planning to abolish the conscription system?
I'm all about keeping conscription. I think that the conditions that have to be in place for an all-volunteer force to be successful aren't in place in Taiwan. Budgetarily, they don't have the money to be able to compete with jobs that they could get in the civilian sector. As far as manpower goes, demographics show that they don't have enough young men. They need all they can get. In many cases, the exact conditions that were in place in America in the early 70s when they abandoned their conscription system are the opposite in Taiwan. So where it was appropriate for America to get rid of conscription at that time, I think it's completely inappropriate for Taiwan to get rid of conscription today.
And the length of the military service, what about that?
It depends. I would suggest 12 to 18 months, but anything that is enough to provide a decent foundation for training, but also a conscription service does more than just staff a military. I mean, it creates a sense of belonging to society. So look what happens in Singapore, for example. It's a very multi-ethnic society, but after their conscription, they come together and understand and have a common understanding of what it means to be Singaporean. We could do that in Taiwan. You could, when you come into the Taiwan military, you're conscripted, you serve with people from all different classes of society, all different social economic strata, all different geographical parts of Taiwan. You meet people and serve with people, and they become your brothers from everywhere, and it brings people together. And then they leave the military, and those ties remain. And it would be a great force for bringing Taiwan together, no matter what your view of yourself as Chinese or Taiwanese or what have you.